Welcome to the Building Savvy Bottom Line. I'm your host, Beverly Smyrnas. Our bottom line goal is to ensure that building or remodeling a home is a seamless and enjoyable process, helping builders and their customers better understand each other's challenges, expectations, and industry norms. This episode is brought to you by The Ultimate Guide to Buying and Building in Texas, an online course for Texas newbies or anyone making their first home purchase in Texas. To learn more, visit buildingsavvy.com. I'd like to welcome Cliff Kessler to the Building Savvy Bottom Line podcast. Cliff is a top producer at the Dallas office of the Beth Allman Associates.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Beth is a powerhouse boutique firm here in Dallas with a lot of top players, but I specifically asked Cliff to be on this podcast because he hails from California like so many of the real estate buyers in this market. So he brings a totally unique and very experienced perspective in that case. Cliff, tell us about your background in California and how you got here.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show as well. I appreciate it. I started off in California. I went to UCLA and studied real estate finance and began to work in the entertainment field as a talent agent, working with celebrities and different top agencies, helping get celebrities in movies, musicians, etc. I just really had a passion for real estate. I go to these houses with these big time celebrities in Malibu and Santa Monica. I just really enjoyed spending time there. I said, what am I doing? I should just be a realtor. And so I switched businesses after working in that business for a few years, which was great. And then just kind of dove straight into working with a massive team out there in Malibu and Santa Monica and, selling these big homes out there, a lot of new construction, a lot of luxury homes out in LA.
So as I understand it, you still are licensed in California as well. So you can really understand your buyers and what they're transitioning from and better help them to find what they're looking for in Texas here.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of differences between the two markets. And it's great that I actually know the contracts too that are in California and the contracts that are in Texas. Small feature that is different is, in Texas, we have title and then we have escrow. Whereas in California, title and escrow are combined, which most people don't know. And so you watch a lot of these real estate TV shows and you say in escrow. And then in Dallas, they all say pending because it's not in escrow here in terms of the title company. It's at the title company. The title company there are kind of like these bougie, clicks too that kind of help boost your listing. Like they'll do parties and stuff. Whereas in Texas, there's all these regulations, right, that cover title. And so it's a neutral third party. And so they don't want to get involved in any kind of promotion or anything of that nature, to get themselves in trouble. And so that in itself is a difference. The regulations on building is a whole different thing with the codes. California, there's a lot more strict codes that require you to, go through a much longer process and trying to get your new build built. Going to the city, taking 9 months, pulling these permits, going through different taxations. Whereas in Texas, you can literally go down there and say, hey, I have experience. I want to be an LLC as a builder. And they'll give you a building, license and you can start building. So, you still have to go through the city permitting and everything like that. But it's a much easier process.
Yeah, I think that as much as there's advantages to not having so much regulation, as you mentioned, the faster timeline, less cumbersome approval process and everything, it does concern people moving from out of state that, hey, how do you know who's a good builder and how to judge that? So what do you tell them when they ask you that? I'm sure they express that concern to you.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And it's a great question for these buyers to ask too as well, because you can literally go down there and get an LLC to be a builder. But the thing is to have a good agent on your side, to have a good agent that works for the builder, to have a track record. If I'm working with a client who's looking to buy a new build, we say, well, what's the track record with this builder? What's the history? We Google it, we look it up. And you can usually tell a bad apple if there's a bad builder. Usually there's a chain of lawsuits against that builder or there's a history. And you go, oh, well, we better stay away from that, right? And if you have a good inspector, you check everything. In addition to that, you have a warranty. Texas, we usually have a 1-2-10 warranty, and those cover foundation and structure and everything like that. So there's different methods that you can use to protect yourself. And hopefully if you had a good agent, those methods would be covered and kind of figured out in advance before you close on that property.
Right. And then there's also the building codes and the inspection and verification that along the way in each step that those codes have been met and those standards have been met as well by the appraisers and the inspectors, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the other day I had a new build. We thought we were good to go in terms of getting a green tag. And they said, well, we checked the gas line, not your gas line, you the builder, but the gas line that's coming from the alleyway. It's the city gas line, and it's not up to code. So we're going to take another 2 weeks, dig up the alleyway and redo that gas line to make sure you have a good product. Obviously that's frustrating for the builder, but it's great to know for the new homeowner that you're getting a solid product and they're really digging into this as a city. They're not just coming by and checking the box and then moving on. They're really making sure that it's a sound product. So yes, there is still a lot of opportunities for the city to make sure they're providing you with a great product at the end.
Yeah, so I would say to the out-of-state buyer to ease their mind about that whole process is, first of all, you should check references and longevity and experience of the builder, but there are some fail-safe checks as far as all of those regulations and codes and things in place to verify that. And then if your builder, most builders nowadays do the warranty, the home warranty, the structural warranties, and they have to meet the criteria, which is often above code that the warranty company will require as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
we've worked with Texas builders for a long time, and I do think that their feeling about it is it's not up to some government entity to understand our business and try to control it. There's other things already in place that are going to assure that we're doing our jobs right. And I think as much as we hear about bad builders, there's more good builders than bad. Most of them do care about a lasting product.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to have a good reputation, and you're not going to build one house and then be done with it. You want to have it as a long-term game plan. And I've seen builders that have not followed that methodology and they don't last very long. They last for a year and then they're out of the game, right? Because it comes back to them. There's a lot of great builders that do a good job and have some cool architecture, and they continue to get more business, especially Highland Park, Crescent Hollow. You see these fantastic builds. And the neat thing about Dallas too is there's a mixture of architecture. You don't have just Spanish or just modern. You have a lot of different variations in styles, and even really neat, cool mid-century moderns that just, that are very rare that exist here in Dallas, and then some wonderful traditional homes. So there's a great variety for everybody here.
Yes. One of our conversations, you were talking about how it's different in California as far as curb appeal is a big deal here. And so that exterior home style plays a higher role here in Texas than it does in California, because everything, I guess in California, your value's out the back of the house, right?
Yeah. I was having a conversation. This came up when I was talking to a builder and a designer a couple of years ago. And I said, I love the pictures from my old listings and stuff in LA because you've got the palm tree and you've got the sky and everything. And they said, well, Cliff, it's not only that it's the palm trees and the sky and everything. They're like, it's also that you're shooting the back of the houses and you're photographers. And I said, that's right. I said, that's true. And I said, we always use the front of the house in Texas, and we always used to use the back of the house in California. And you don't see a lot of builders that put a lot of money into the backyard here. Usually it's an afterthought, or here's what you could do, right? Yeah. Whereas in California, they build in, like, we're going to do a sunken, fire pit with a pool and a hot tub, but also because people want to be out typically because it's 70 degrees. So that's probably another reason why, but it's neat to see the difference. And so because of that, the curb appeal of the front of the houses in Dallas, your drive-up appeal is more important. Whereas in California, if you look at some of these houses, the drive-up appeal is not as nice as they are in Dallas. You've got really good curb appeal in the houses here.
And part of it too is kind of wanting to hide from, the privacy factor. You're not trying to look almost understated from the street, I think, in some cases. And certainly more focus on the outdoor living in the backyards here too over the last couple of decades as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's increased, especially in your upper, your $10, $20 million homes. You're definitely going to see that. I'm thinking like maybe 2, 3 in that range. You may have someone do it as a one-off. They might put a small pool in or whatever, but it's nice to see it. And I think if you're getting that ultra luxury, yeah, absolutely. You're definitely going to see someone put some effort and some love into the backyard. But, I just love the fact that everything's bigger in Texas, right? We build it to have great curb appeal, to showcase who we are, to say, hey, my house is the best one on the street. And it's exciting to me. I like it. And
then you've got much bigger yard spaces to deal with. So you can do lots of cool, creative things in the backyard as well. Oh, yeah, 100%. There, you're pretty much next door. You can reach over and touch your neighbor's house. Here, you've got just a fantastic lot, great yards. And there's some really cool topography, which I don't think people understand when they think Dallas or Texas. They think flat. But
If you go to areas like Bluffview or Lakewood or Preston Hollow, you've got actually some really interesting topography with some hills. And even down in like Oak Cliff, there's some great parts down there in Kessler Park where you can develop and build these houses kind of into the side of the hill.
And lots of waterways, which can be tricky, but beautiful too, especially through that Preston Hollow area. Lots of interesting waterways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And lake properties too.
Yeah. So let's talk about the transition to Texas again and how you ended up with Beth Allman.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I was with a firm there that was a great real estate firm. I won't throw any names out to throw them under the bus. But when I came here to Dallas, I interviewed with about maybe 100 different brokers. And the thought process in California is marketing. Everything's about marketing, right? But in Texas, it's about the name. It's about who you know. It's a brand. You see people with their cufflinks, with their initials on there. It's about the brand. And Beth Allman had been an icon, friends with a lot of political families and people that were successful in a multitude of businesses. And because of that, she worked with the best. She had the best listings. And it came and trickled down through all the agents in the office. And my firm that was in California, when I came here, they didn't have the volume, didn't have the numbers that they did at Beth. And not only was there a numbers portion of it, but there's also the portion of the fact that they're just great people. It's a family environment there. And you felt like when you came into work that everyone was trying to help each other out, where some of these brokerages, it's ruthless, it's cutthroat. They want to one-up you. I don't have that sense at Beth. I have a feeling that they all want to help each other, just do better and increase the volume for the whole office.
And you have a real specialty in working with new construction as well. Did that start in California or more here?
My first listing was a $5 million listing in Malibu. So I kind of started off in a good place.
Yeah.
Because I was in entertainment, I had a celebrities manager's house as my first listing. And they said, hey, you might get some, celebrities in the backyard when you show up playing ping pong or riding horses. And so it was kind of a fun listing. I kind of did everything there. The trend was more modern there. And I was able to kind of learn that market. My mentor there did a lot of new construction. When I moved here, I would do anything, right? Because you're new in the business. And so if someone said, hey, here's a tutor, I would say, yes, let's do it. But I gravitated towards it. I was working up a property down here in an area called Lakewood, and a builder came by and he said, hey, I like what you're doing with your marketing, with your open houses and everything else. Would you mind finding me a property and I'll let you be the agent on the back end if you find me the lot? Nice. And it just kind of took off from there. I did well with him and he referred me to 3 people and it just kind of ended up falling into that niche. And I kind of have an eye for design element too. So I'll look at people's plans. I'll tell them how to move windows and, where the outdoor kitchen should be. And I just kind of fell into that area of expertise.
That's cool. I know you have a ton of resources and it is unusual to find realtors with as much knowledge that you have on construction and the resources as well. I know we've worked with Cliff on a couple of projects now and he's just a wealth of resources, which is so.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I enjoy it. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is loving what you do. I mean, in fact, my wife, I was on my phone researching different windows for new builds yesterday. And she's like, what are you looking at? And I was like, oh, windows. And she's like, can you stop working and just relax? And she's like, why are you looking at windows at 10 o'clock at night? But I enjoy it. I look forward to it. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Work and fun blend together. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
What brought you to Texas in the first place from California?
I really wanted a good environment for my kids in terms of having a bigger yard, like we talked about, having a bigger space, having a really great family environment. Not that there's not one there, and obviously some parts, every part's different, right? But consistently as a whole, it was a lot easier way of life here in Texas. And there was a lot of growth opportunity. Businesses were booming here. And this is all pre-COVID. I just saw the potential in Texas to take off. And one of the things I love about Dallas, and I was actually just talking about this with someone that came through the open house. There's a lot of big cities in the US that you can't really afford to live downtown. There are $5, $10, $20 million builds downtown. And it kind of encompasses the whole downtown area. So if you work downtown, you have to live in the suburbs. You have to live outside of town to be able to afford that. In Dallas, there's still areas where you can buy $1 million, $800,000, $1 million home and be 10 minutes from downtown. Right. It's a real special opportunity for people that, can't afford a $5 million house and they want to be close to work. So because of that, a lot of people are moving here and they see the opportunities for growth. We've seen so many big companies come here in the last couple of years. And I think we're going to see even more in the next couple of years, seeing the opportunities here in Dallas. And so I think we're in a really good place here.
Absolutely. And on the same token, in some parts of the center of the city of Dallas, you have huge estates and very much opportunity to build an ultimate dream home right in the middle of the city. I know that old Preston Hollow area, which is, one of the wealthiest zip codes in the country, the lots are so big because those used to be dairy farms over there, from what I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've taken, and in Lakewood, they've taken the golf courses out and built these mansions there as well. There's, it's nice to see the change. Yeah, I mean, we're selling Highland Park, $1,000 a square foot now.
And of course, the Californians feel comfortable with Highland Park because it was designed by the same land planner that designed Beverly Hills or redid Beverly Hills back in the same time period around the 1920s. There's a lot of that Spanish mission architecture there in Highland Park that I think the Californians love to see. So Cliff, settling into Dallas with your family, you can relate to your customers and all the things that they have ahead of them. Tell us what you love about living in Dallas besides work. What do you do? What do you like about being here?
Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of family opportunities here. You've got a lot of lakes. You can ride your bike around the lake. You can take out a sailboat. You can go for a run. There's tons of parks here that they make sure, even in the expensive parts over like Bluffview, for instance, they just spent $50 million on a new park and bike trail over there. So the city is continually trying to establish areas for families because they know more are going to be coming here. I mean, you've got Six Flags, you've got water parks, multiple movie theaters, malls galore, and probably some of the best food that I've ever had in the U.S. is in Dallas. You get these great chefs that come here and just really try and experiment with new things. And you'll see all these big chains from all the U.S. that come to Dallas, and they put up a few icon shops here to try out new things, and everything does really well. And then you've got a great pocket downtown. I mean, look at Uptown. 10 years ago, it really hadn't been built out. And now you've got all kinds of Clyde Warren Park, which is great for families. The Symphony, Dallas Summer Musicals, that's another wonderful thing. That's actually run by a guy who was from California and New York who moved here, and he's running that. And they bring all the Broadway musicals from New York to Dallas now, and you get to take part in those. And you've got Fair Park next to that, where they host multiple events throughout the summer. Great football, baseball, everything. But Rangers won the World Series, so we're in a good place. And the Dallas Stars, actually have some of my clients are Dallas Stars players, and I love watching those games. So,
oh, yeah. My husband's Canadian, so he loves the hockey as well. So it's been a lot of Canadians coming down for that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of home builders that have relocated or at least branched in from Canada into Texas as well. So a lot of Canadian traffic as well. Really from everywhere.
That's great.
Right? Coming from New York and Chicago as well.
We've got a lot from Chicago recently, and Miami too. Miami's been a big player in terms of people relocating here. I think with the weather and the storms they've had, it's pretty consistent of style of city. So we're getting a lot of those transplants.
You're in the middle of the country. If you need to be somewhere else, you can hop on a plane really easily and get there.
Exactly.
Parts of Dallas are like a ghost town in the middle of the summer because everybody's in Colorado at their second home.
That in Florida, you see all of our friends down in Miami. They call it 30A. There's a lot of people down there, and a lot of builders from Dallas going to 30A and building there too, to have their second home there. And same thing with Colorado, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, because real estate is still somewhat affordable compared to other markets, a lot of people do have second homes or ranch property closer to somewhere in Texas.
Yeah. I actually had someone ask me, and they said, well, what keeps you there? And they've got a $4 million house in LA. And I said, well, because you can have $1 million house in Dallas, $1 million condo in LA, $1 million condo in New York, and I'm not stuck in one place. I get to travel all over the place. And that's interesting. That does make sense. I'd rather be traveling and experiencing things.
Yeah. A lot of people buying over in Mexico, some of the destinations there as well.
Oh, yeah. We've looked into that too. A lot of big companies going down there and building.
I've seen some American real estate offices popping up there, and title companies and everything as well. So growing. Where are we going to put all the people?
I know. But thankfully, the traffic is still good here in Dallas. I think that's something people ask about and they're concerned about, but I haven't really seen a big change like you've seen in Austin. For instance, Austin is pretty backed up. Just like LA, it takes you 20 minutes to get a mile. So it's nice that Dallas, you still have I think because the way they laid it out, you got two main horizontal streets and then these cross streets George Bush and 635. So people can still get around in multiple ways without getting stuck.
Correct. Yes. So, Cliff, I've seen how you worked, on a couple of projects with, the builders and the designers, and you're representing the client there, but you understand their roles as well. And I think that's important to. What would you say about that relationship and how it should work?
The great thing about working with a lot of builders is it's a team effort. And I think that's really important because I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer, but I have some idea of what works to sell properties. And I think that's huge. And I think if you get into a situation where someone is one-sided, where they can't ask their designer, their realtor, what's the trend, then it becomes problematic because you always want to build to sell. That's the point. It's not to build for, like you did a custom home. Well, then that's different, right? Because then you're building for your own personality, your own style, the way that you're like, I'm an architect and I want to, do a cantilever deck. That works for that custom build. But for a spec home, you work with the agents, you work with the designers that says, okay, this tile is the trend now, right? And I think we talked about in the past, it used to be more of a traditional play in Dallas overall was the overarching theme. And now you're seeing a lot more modern homes come into play here and sell faster because you're getting a lot of transplants and they're the ones buying the properties. So the ones that have the updated kitchen, the beautiful bathrooms, a lot of those features tend to be more transitional. Those tend to sell a lot faster. Although everything sells if it's done right. If it's, if you're creative and you don't go outside the scope of what you're trying to get on the back end, if everything kind of matches, like if this is a traditional house, then you want darker wood floors. If everything kind of matches, then it sells. But if you get outside the box and you get a little too creative, those houses tend to sit a little bit longer. And elements that used to be in style, the grays and the whites, that was more of a transitional style. Now those are out. Now you're seeing a lot of earth tone colors. You're seeing a lot of greens, light greens, taupe. You're seeing stained grade wood instead of the paint grade wood. And you kind of have to mimic those trends because a lot of these buyers are looking at these real estate shows in LA or Zillow or whatever, and they're seeing the trends and they're saying, well, I want the stained grade cabinets with the gold handles. Yes. Because that's what's selling. Yes. Right? Even though you're like, well, not necessarily, but we have to appeal to that market because they're the ones writing the check. So I always try to give good advice, and the designers are great about that in terms of trying to keep everybody on track on what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, that's great. So you do see it transitioning into a little bit softer, warmer, more, I hear the word biolithic a lot.
Yeah. I mean, for so long, it was white brick and real light floors and then white cabinets with black handles. And now you see that and you think, oh, that was 5 years ago. And you think that house is outdated. So now when you go in and you're seeing some different styles of wood colors, maybe even some darker floors now, some darker wood, and you're seeing the wider plank, and then you're seeing almost like a transition from like a farmhouse type look into a transitional look. So we're seeing a lot more earth tones, even on your countertops as well, even some darker colors which didn't exist. Oh, you're going to do a quartzite dark gray or black counter. Well, that's circa 1990, right? But now those are coming back in different styles where it's a specialized quartzite that has like a marbleized to it, or it's Italian Carrara marble and it has some veins to it that give it a little bit darker look, in addition with those stained grade wood cabinets. So that's kind of the trend change.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the warmth coming back.
Oh, and also, this has happened since COVID, but now we're seeing two offices, a husband and wife or a couple or whatever, working from home. And so they need to have two offices. You're also seeing the need for a pool. A lot more houses have pools now due to COVID. And then you're seeing the trend for an area for kids to do their homework in, where there's like a game room space or an extra living space that you didn't see a lot of that being used before those. It used to just be you have your primary, your kids' bedrooms, game room, media, and that was it, right? But now they're adding all these little extra spaces.
Yeah, intimate spaces in the house. Everybody's got to have a Zoom room. So
yeah, everyone's got to have your TikTok or your YouTube room, right? To do your studio from home. That's what we need to do, is we need to start the trend on the houses with the YouTube room.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Somebody wrote an article for us recently about an Instagram ready home.
That makes sense. Every room is Instagrammable,
Yeah, it's got to look good.
I like that.
Cliff, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the California market, the Texas market, and we're just experiencing a great migration of people into Texas. And I'm always fascinated to hear the stories about how people get here and their lives when they get here. And we really appreciate your sharing your own story. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, I'm happy to be on the podcast. It was a lot of fun and great in chatting with you. And I wish continued success with it as well.
All right.